Happy Mother's Day to everyone out there. Mother's Day is one of the most favorite days of the year for me. I really like Mother's Day. My mother was a fantastic person, and some of my first and fondest memories were with her. Times that we spent together, especially in my youth and growing up. Mom was just a fantastic person. Everyone else called her Mother Mullen, but I called her just Mom. Never called her by her first name because the generation that I grew up, we were not allowed to call our parents by their first name. And the reason for that was that we were always to remember that they were the parent and we were the child, and we were not equals in that sense, especially as they were raising us. We learned one thing, and I appreciate the generation in which I was raised, because the parent was the one that made the final decision, not the child. And the parent always assumed that I know what's best for you. And they were pretty strong in that at that time. That was my opinion. So we're going to talk a little bit about, having a mom and what that was like, and how that's one of life's great experiences and great loves, the love of a mother for her children. Gail, why don't you jump in on this?
Well, I'm glad for Mother's Day, and I want to say and give a shout out to all you mothers out there. And, I always say it doesn't make any difference if you don't have any biological children. We still wish you happy Mother's Day, because you have caused an effect in lives around you. Maybe they might not have been your children biologically, but you have had a tremendous hand into their upbringing, into instilling wisdom in them and helping them to grow. And so I have a shout out to you for Happy Mother's Day. My mother is living, fortunately, and I talk to her quite often. And I just thank God for my mother. She has been such a pillar in my life. Actually, my mother has been a mother and a dad, and I know that mothers cannot replace the fathers, but my mother has been just such a pillar in my life. And I'm so thankful and glad that she still is with us. And I call her every day, asking her if she got her hand sanitizer, is she keeping up with her mask and social distancing and things of that sort. And like Pastor says, sometimes parents don't want to hear that from their children, but on this occasion, she's listening, and I'm so glad about that. I can't imagine life without her, and she has been a good mother. She has been a good mother, and she hasn't been a meddlesome mother-in-law. And I think that is so powerful. I remember she told me just before I married my husband, she said, Gail, she says, now when you marry this man, you decided to live with him as his wife. And so if you all have a disturbance, don't be coming back and forth home. She said, the only time you can come home is if he hits you. And then you call me and I'll come in your place. And my mother has that type of personality. And I thank God that she was never meddling mother-in-law. If anything, she was a supporting mother-in-law, supporting our entire family, supporting me, my husband, our children. She's always been there for us. And I thank God for her. And I just thank God that that I have a mother. And she's in the ministry, and she has taught me a lot about ministry. She has given me tips on the do's and the don'ts and all those types of things. And she has been a very wise woman in my life. And so I just want to say I thank God for her. Pastor?
Yeah, one thing that you said that's really important, and I think that that should really be touched on a little bit. Many times we think that in order to be an authentic mother, that we have to be biologically linked to an individual to be their mom. Like many times I'll hear children say, well, I never really had a mother, or I never knew my mother. But there are people that if we allow them to step into our lives, that can become authentic and legitimate moms to us and love us. You know, a mother's heart is not limited to biology. Let me just say that again. A mother's heart is not linked to biology. There's something so phenomenal and fantastic that God has placed in a mom's heart to love, and that is that there are no barriers. Actually, a mother's love is the closest thing that I've found to the God kind of love, the agape love, which means that I love you not just because of who you are, but I have decided to love you without restrictions, regardless of your faults, regardless of your flaws. I don't love you because you deserved to be loved, but I love you relentlessly, powerfully, with all your flaws, your warts and failures. I love you. And that's the kind of love that moms had. And this is actually love in the natural that has taken its cue from God's supernatural love. And so that's why, to me, Mother's Day is so special, because it reminds me of the love of God and how that He loves us. I think of a story, and this is a true story. I can't remember the individuals' names. However, a young mom was out in her backyard hanging up clothes on a clothesline. Now, some of you may not know what a clothesline is, seeing how this is the 21st century, and we do everything through machines today, so very seldom do you see people out in the backyard hanging clothes on a clothesline. And she was using clothespins. Now, clothespins are these little funny little pins that are like pinchers, and they hold the clothes to the line. Look it up in a history book, you'll find it. You know, people used to use clothespins. You know, you might be able to find some at the dollar store. But anyway, clothespins, and she was hanging out sheets. And while she was doing her chores, taking the clothes from the basket and hanging them on each line, and she smelled smoke, and the house had caught fire. And she looked, and there was smoke coming out of the window, and the child's bed was right by the opening of the window, but the house was on fire. And so the mom runs to the house a few meters away and reaches her hands through the fire and lifts her child through the flames to safety. Now, years later, the child was engaged in some event at school, and she asked her mom not to come. And the mom says, "Oh, I was so excited about coming." She says, "No, Mom, you don't have to come. My friends will be there. Other people will be there, and you can just sit this one out." Well, the truth of the story is that the young girl that was saved from the fire by her mom was ashamed of her mother's scars, And so she asked her mom not to show up Well, a family member got wind of this, and after the event was over, she asked the young girl, why wasn't your mother involved in the event? And the young girl said, well, I asked Mom not to come. You know, she has these ugly scars, and I really didn't want everybody to look at all of that. And then the relative began to say, well, had your mom ever told you how she got those scars? And she says, no, Mom never mentioned to me how she got those scars. And then the relative began to say, those scars represent her love for you. She reached through the flames, and as she was reaching for you, the fire, the intensity was so high for her to reach through the flames to get to you. She snatched you literally from the fire, and you were not burned, but she was burned. And that's why she has those third-degree burns on her arms. So the next time you look at those arms, don't look at them as arms that are deformed and unattractive. Look at those arms as arms of love, arms that reach through the fire to save me. And that's what love does. It reaches through the fire, and even in pain, the reach of love keeps on reaching. And that's the heart of a mom. She will sacrifice everything for her children. Gail, back to you.
All right. I remember when my children were small, as I was on my way here this morning, I had to chuckle. I remember an incident, well, quite a few incidents, when they couldn't find something. And they would always say, Mom, would you use your magic eyes and find my such and such, find my other shoe, find my keys, find my socks, whatever it might be. And I knew that it just was a matter that they hadn't looked. But nevertheless, they said, Mom, would you use your magic eyes, which actually was the Spirit of God in me. And I said, sure. Well, I went right to their things and got them for them, and they were happy. And every time they would lose something that they thought was lost, they said, Mom, would you use your magic eyes to find this and that and the other? And so as they got older, I told them, I said, you can use your magic eyes too. I said, because actually my magic eyes is nothing but the Lord in me. And I said, and the Lord will talk to me, you, just like he talks to me. I said, so just know that you have magic eyes too, and it's the Lord. Well, that didn't stop them from asking me to find their lost articles. And I just kept on looking for their lost articles. But children are such a blessing. I've enjoyed our children. I've enjoyed raising them, and I enjoy that God had entrusted these children into our care. And even when our son Stevie was severely retarded, I had to thank God for God putting Stevie in our home, because back when Stevie was living, I would shudder to think, what would it be like if this severely retarded child was put in someone's home who didn't love him and was critical of him and abusive to him. And I found myself thanking God that Stevie was in our family, that he was in our home, and where we could care for him and love him, and that he could be a part of our lives. And it's so interesting because when I was going to Highland Community College on one occasion, we had to write a paper. I was in an English class, and I wrote a paper on communication more than a voice. And my mind went to Stevie, because Stevie was not able to talk, and so we had to use a modified hand sign language. But even in that silence, Stevie communicated so much to us, to our family, to each member of our family. And so he was a very, very important child in our family. And so I enjoyed my years of parenting with all of its pressures, and there were pressures, and all of the ups and downs and different situations that occurred. But nevertheless, I enjoyed having our children. I enjoyed them being in our home. And I enjoy sitting back and looking how they are with their children. And, some of the same traditions that we have in our family when they were coming up, I see that demonstrated in their families. And I just thank God, because parents are such an important example. And especially moms, because moms are home. And of course, I worked outside of the home as well. But still, I was a great influence on our children. And so moms are a great influence on their children. And I always say more is taught than caught. And what do I mean by that? I mean that children watch our lives as moms. They watch our lives and see how we handle things. And, that puts a mark in their mind and heart of how to handle different situations that they encounter in their life. And so often they will reflect back, remembering, when I was a child, my mom this, and when I was a child, my mom that. And so I just thank God, as I said before, for the opportunity to raise our children, and now to be able to enjoy our grandchildren. I'm so thankful for that opportunity. And actually, I count it a privilege. I didn't come from a single one-child family. We had multiple children. And so I appreciate the fact that we have children and grandchildren that we can be a blessing to, and that we can pour into their lives as they continue to pour into our life. Pastor?
Yeah, that's so true. More is caught than taught. That is such a powerful statement you made there, Gail. When I think about what our children caught from you, I'm just glad that you're their mom, and they don't know how blessed they are to have you as their mom. And I've always felt like, as the mom, you really made the family really click, really, really happen, and brought real life to the household. And truly, you're the heartbeat of our sons. And they love you. They love you so much, and I'm happy that they love their mom. And I think that the relationship, especially, to begin with, the relationship with moms and sons, and then we'll talk about daughters too, but mom is the first female in the life of her sons, and the mom has the privilege of introducing to her sons, this is what women are like. This is what a real woman is like. To be able to imprint that on a young man, for a young man to get an idea, okay, when I look for that significant person in my life, the woman that I'm going to marry, I'm looking for certain qualities in her. And this is what can be caught. It's not a matter of, saying, well, son, if she's this way, don't stay away from her. There's just some things, are difficult to teach, and it's better just to demonstrate. And that's what you did. And our sons have great wives. Yes, and I believe that the reason for that is they saw the qualities that are in you, and they sought those qualities out in the one person that they wanted to spend the rest of their life with. And so motherhood has dynamic dimensions of influence on the lives of the children. And we're talking about sons right now, because we had a daughter, and unfortunately she passed away in her infancy. But we were left with our remaining sons, and it is just amazing how that they have learned how to love their wives. And this, now, as a dad, that was one of the most important things to me, is that I didn't want to raise any sons that abused their wives, that were not physically, no physical abuse, and no emotional abuse to a woman. And I always felt like, God, when my son marries, or my sons marry, I want them to make the life of the person that they marry a wonderful life, not a burdensome prison where the person is trying to escape. I don't believe any woman's life should be like, when can I get out of this prison type, if you know what I'm trying to say.
I do. Excuse me. That puts my mind on one of our sons. It was getting married, and we went to, brought the young lady home for dinner and things of that sort. And when they became engaged, one thing he said to me, he said, I told her that whatever happens in this marriage, we've got to work it out, because I don't believe in divorce. Because my mom and dad, through all their issues, they never divorced. And I want to say, sometimes that there's trouble in marriages, and instead of just saying I'm done, seek out godly counsel and try to resolve the issues. No one is perfect, and you can never expect to find a perfect wife, because you're not a perfect man. And so there are no perfect people, but as we go and we grow, we ask God to give us the wisdom how to handle our situations. I know when my kids were growing up, there's some things I encountered, and even in marriage, there's some things I've encountered. And I said, God, I need your wisdom. And surely God had given me that wisdom on how to deal with situations. And folks, I want to tell you something. As sure as I'm sitting here, God will answer you and give you the wisdom that you need for every situation. Now, I'm not saying stay in an abusive environment. God never intended anyone to be a punching bag. But I will say there are some issues that can be worked out. As long as it's not a matter of your life on the line, as long as it's not a matter of abusiveness, physical abusiveness and things of that sort, just some things can be worked out. Sometimes we want things fast, we want them now, and we don't want to put in the hard work. And having a man and a woman relationship, it's putting in. It's taking the good, the bad, and the ugly, and allowing God to help you to have an understanding, allow God to give you directions. The Bible says, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. And if you are a person who knows Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, God will give you the wisdom and the knowledge to know what to do, when to do, and how to do. And I base my whole life on that. And I don't believe in just giving up instantly, just giving up in a whim, just giving up. But I believe in putting prayer on every situation. And I believe in allowing God to give me the answers and the strength to do what I need to do. And so I'm glad for our children. And of course, the young man that I'm talking about, they have grown children are in college, and they love each other. And so I just want to tell you that never be ashamed, never ever be ashamed to seek advice from godly counsel. When I was coming along, there was no such thing as godly counsel, because they felt like, well, you just get saved, allow Christ in your life, and everything's going to work out fine, and whatever happens, you just keep on going. Well, no. There are times that we need intervention, and we need someone to come alongside in the relationships and help us with wisdom of how to handle sometimes marriage, how to handle our children. But let it be godly counsel, because in a multitude of counsels there is safety. Seek godly counsel when you need it, whenever that time comes, if it ever should come. And so I just thank God that because of the wisdom of the Word of God and the wisdom of wise people around us, that is what made our home a better home. A better home. It was good, but it was even better. And so I thank God for that.
All right. Well, as we said in the beginning, happy Mother's Day. And we could talk volumes about the importance of Mother's Day, but we just wanted to take some moments to express the importance of being a mother. I am so thankful for my grandchildren's moms that have been fantastic moms that have raised great children. Where that the kids, they were happy living in the homes, happy households, and I love that. Our kids, they say that they were happy, and now my grandchildren, when I talk to them, they tell me about how happy they are and how glad that they got a good mom and dad. And to me, that's a legacy that we can all pass down to our children and our children's children. Well, turning the corner kind of sharply, I just want to talk to you briefly on the subject that I left off on last week. Faith equals trust. Faith equals trust. One of the first things I want to say about faith is that faith is not wishful thinking. Faith is not trusting in a God that we think that is perhaps there, but faith is trusting in a tangible God, a tangible God that who is there, the God that who is there, not we hope is there, but a God that we know is there. You see, faith is based on knowledge. Now, you might not understand that. You might say, what? I thought faith was based on believing in something that perhaps I could be wrong about, or, hoping that my belief is right. But Christian faith is based on knowledge. Not, I hope that God exists, but the knowledge that He does exist. You see, faith takes it out of faith takes it out of the category of God is a possibility, that it's possible that He exists and it's possible that He may not exist. Faith is not an agnostic dilemma. And when someone is agnostic, they're saying there's evidence that He perhaps exists and maybe evidence that He doesn't exist, and so I don't know if He exists or not. I hope that He exists. And that's kind of a wishful thinking. Like you'll hear people say, God, or if there's anybody up there, would you please help me? That's not faith. Because you're praying to something that you think is a possibility. God is not a possibility. God is a probability. He does exist, stronger than the life and existence of the physical or natural universe, because He transcends it. And so when I say I believe God, I'm not believing some intangible, incredulous, and I know I just abused that word, but God exists. He is there, and He does answer His people. He does intervene, and rational thinking and reason always points to the existence of God. Now, I know there are some that would like to debate me on that. And believe me, I could give you a good argument and a good debate on the existence of God, because He does exist. Now, when you become a believer, you know that He exists. You know, we believe in the beginning, and the outcome of our believing is knowing. You see, you believe in God, you trust Him on the evidence that says that He does exist, and so you lean on that evidence that He does exist, and then you discover that He's a God that you can know. And so actually being a believer is a person that goes beyond belief, and your belief is rewarded by God allowing Himself to be known. God allows Himself to be known. Everyone that has come into the knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ and asked Him to come into their life and to come into their heart, as some would say, that actually happens, and it goes beyond belief. Believing is just the door. Believing is just the door. When you step through that door, you really get to know God. You know, when you open that door and walk through that door, guess what? God's there. And you're saying, whoa, you really do exist. Wow, you really are here. Wow, you really are God. Now, from people that are on the other side of that door, they are still wondering, does He really exist? But a believer will take God at His word, because that's how we know God exists, is that we take Him at His word. And when we trust on that word, we get a chance to meet God. And this is a meeting where that we know God. Now, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible, because walking with God is not a religious experience. When I say a religious experience, I'm saying religious experience in the context of just religion, just a rule book and following these rule books until someday you will find your path to God. When you are a Christian and Jesus Christ comes into your heart, you're not trying to find the path to God anymore. You've found God. No Christian is on a path to God. I'm not on a path to God. I know God. I've found God through Jesus Christ. How do I know heaven is real? Because I met the God of heaven. I know the God of heaven. Prayer has become more than a monologue. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. They think of prayer as basically a monologue. There are people that write their prayers as if they're writing a blog or an article or a poem or some prose to God. And there's no expectation that God is going to speak back to them. But God very clearly speaks back to His children. He truly speaks back to His children. Now, the thing is that the basis of trust for the believer, and this is what we're talking about, faith, the basis of trust for a believer is based on that knowledge of the relationship that they have with the God who is really there. If you have a really good friend that says they have your back and they've been a good friend for many years, and even though they're human with all the flaws that humans have, still we will put our trust in that human. It's true. There would be no civilizations at all if humans didn't put their trust in other humans. There'd be no companies, there'd be no businesses, there would be no families, there'd be no marriages, there'd be nothing. And all of civilization is based on human beings trusting each other, even with our flaws. Now, I want to say God has no flaws. His character is authentic and perfect. And when we put our trust in Him, that's called faith. Now, I want to briefly go back to our rhetorical statements from last week, our rhetorical statements, rhetorical questions that Jesus asked. The first rhetorical question was from Matthew 8:24 and 27, in which the disciples found themselves in a tempest in the sea, or the Sea of Galilee, a huge lake that to them was like a sea. The waters were treacherous. The ship seemingly that they were on, the little boat that they were on, seemed to be sinking. Jesus was asleep on a pillow. And they woke up Jesus, and Jesus asked this rhetorical question, why are you fearful? O ye of little faith, why are you fearful? In life, there are things that happen to us, especially those of us that know Jesus. Now, think about the question Jesus says, why are you fearful? Now, some people would say, it's obvious why we're fearful. The ship is sinking, we're taking on water, the waves are tossing this boat like a ping pong ball from one wave to the next, and you're asking why I'm fearful. And some of you know what I'm talking about. In your life, there's stuff that is happening to you. You love Jesus, you're walking with the Lord, or perhaps you're not, but your life is being bounced around like a ping pong ball. It seems to them that you have no control. You don't know what direction you're going to go in next. All you know is that you're being swatted from the left to the right, up and down. You're bouncing off the table, left and right, front and center. You have no control of what's going on in your life. And then with that going on in your life, you are fearful, and Jesus steps in. Jesus is God, so God steps in and says, what are you scared about? Why are you fearful? What a rhetorical question. Oh, you have little faith. Now, to add, insult to injury, Jesus smacks them again, with the first question, why are you fearful? Rhetorical. Oh, ye of little faith. You would probably be quite insulted at that time. But then Jesus does something to show them why they shouldn't be afraid. He immediately commands the waves to stop. And the Bible says there was a great calm, and immediately they were at the other side of where they were going. No matter how treacherous life gets, Christ still is asking the question rhetorically, why are you afraid? Now, when a question is asked rhetorically, the question is asked for this reason. What is it in your life that is causing you not to trust God when it's time to trust Him the most? You see, trusting God is, of course, for when things are smooth and going great. We can say, yes, I believe God, I trust God. Because you feel like everything's okay, so, yeah, I trust God. But what about when the waters become turbulent in your life? Your marriage gets crazy. Your children are doing things that you never imagined your children would do. Stuff gets really out of whack. And God is saying, don't allow your emotions to mimic your circumstance. Keep your peace. Keep your calmness, because God is in control. You see, trusting God is used when the waters are turbulent. Knowing that Jesus is on the boat. He's on your boat. He's in your vessel. You know, your life is like a vessel. So he's on your boat. He's in your boat. He's with you. And you got to trust in the God who is really there. When you really trust God, peace will come, because you have faith. O ye of little trust. You know, O ye of little faith, O ye of little trust. This is the message that Jesus was giving him, his disciples. You know, you trust me a lot when nothing's going on in your life, but you trust me less when things get really rough in your life. Real faith never changes from circumstance to circumstance. Real faith does not allow the circumstance of what could be a bad day to change your day. Real faith does not allow you to be moved. You might say, well, I'm just not emotionally strong enough. That I'm telling you that God can bless you in such a way that no matter what's going on in your life, because of your trust in Him and knowing Him, knowing the God of the universe, knowing that He is bigger than the stuff that's happening in your life. And unfortunately, it's time for us to go. And we barely scratched the surface on faith equals trust. We'll come back next week and explore more on these rhetorical questions that Christ asks us to reflect on. And then we'll get into how to activate and operate your faith that God has given you. Remember, the Bible says, to every man has been given a measure of faith. God bless you. Pastor Gail, you're going to let them know who we are and where we're at?
We are Victorious Life Christian Center. Our location is 241 Southwest 41st Street, Building 11, Renton, Washington, 98057. If you'd like to contact us, our number is 206-212-4455. And we have a website, victoriouschristian.org. And so we just invite you to tune in to see who we are, and invite you to tune in again next week to hear the rest of this dynamic message that Pastor has given us. And again, happy Mother's Day. And until next week, God richly bless you. And so we say farewell until then. Blessings to you. Bye.